In the golden age of Islam, there lived a man whose mind knew no bounds, a man who dared to ask the universe its deepest questions and unlock its secrets, a man who bridged the gap between faith and reason. His name was Ibn Sina, better known in the West as Avicenna. He was a mathematician, astronomer, physicist, philosopher, and above all, a physician. His contributions to these fields earned him the title of the father of modern medicine. But how did he do it? How did this man from Persia change the world? To answer that question, we must go back to where it all began, Bukhara. Imagine yourself in the year 980 CE in Bukhara, one of the most important cities in Central Asia, a melting pot of cultures and ideas, home to some of the greatest scholars of the time. Here we meet our protagonist as a young boy, already displaying signs of brilliance. At the tender age of 13, he mastered the Quran and the Hadith, the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad. By 15, he was well versed in logic, mathematics, astronomy, and poetry. And by 18, he had completed his most ambitious project yet, an original commentary on the Quran, a feat that would make him famous throughout the Islamic world. But wait a minute, you might be thinking, how did he do it? How could he have achieved so much without a formal education? Well, that's where his story takes a surprising turn, because Ibn Sina was essentially self-taught. You see, while he did attend a religious school for some time to learn the Quran, he soon realized that it wasn't enough for him. He craved more knowledge, more understanding of the world around him. So he started reading everything he could get his hands on, books on philosophy, medicine, physics, astronomy, you name it. He devoured them all. And in doing so, he developed his own unique way of thinking, a way that combined reason and revelation, faith and science. But sadly, his time in Bukhara was cut short when the city fell to the Samanids, a nomadic tribe from Central Asia. Faced with the prospect of living under the oppressive rule of the Samaritans, Ibn Sina and his family decided to flee. So they packed up and left the city, traveling from town to town in search of a better life. During this time, Ibn Sina continued to study and write, honing his skills and waiting for his chance to shine. And when it came, he was ready for it. He eventually settled in the city of Herat in present-day Afghanistan, where he became the personal physician to the vizier of the local ruler. This was his big break, his opportunity to put his medical knowledge to use and make a difference in people's lives. But little did he know that this job would change his life forever. See, Ibn Sina quickly gained a reputation for his skill and knowledge, so much so that he was summoned to the court of the Sultan of Khwarazm to treat his son, who was suffering from a mysterious illness. And guess what? He successfully diagnosed the boy with a rare disease called acute colitis and cured him. That's right, he saved the heir to the throne, and for that he was rewarded handsomely. The Sultan showered him with gifts and granted him access to the finest libraries in his empire. It was a dream come true for any scholar, and Ibn Sina took full advantage of it. In fact, he spent the next 10 years of his life in Khwarazm, writing some of his most important works, including his magnum opus, the Canon of Medicine. But before we delve into that masterpiece, let's take a moment to appreciate the scope of Ibn Sina's genius. I mean, he didn't just limit himself to one field or discipline. Oh no, he was a true polymath, a Renaissance man who excelled in everything he turned his mind to. Take philosophy, for example. He wrote a book called The Book of Healing, which was so influential that it became a standard textbook in medical schools for centuries. Or consider his work in astronomy and physics. He made significant contributions to our understanding of the cosmos, developing new instruments and correcting Ptolemy's theories, not to mention his literary talents. He wrote poetry and plays and even invented a new script. But his most enduring legacy is undoubtedly his medical writings. In his book, The Canon of Medicine, he collected and analyzed the works of over 400 Greek and Arab physicians, offering his own commentary and insights along the way. This book was a game changer, a comprehensive and systematic approach to medicine that influenced medical practice in both the Islamic and European worlds for centuries. But sadly, it wasn't all smooth sailing for Ibn Sina. You see, despite his many accomplishments, he faced opposition from conservative religious scholars who saw his methods and ideas as a threat to traditional beliefs. They accused him of heresy and banned his books, forcing him to flee once again. So he packed up and left Harazmi and set out on a new journey, one that would take him to the bustling city of Damascus. There he found a new patron in the vizier of the Umayyad Caliph and was appointed to the prestigious post of physician to the caliphate. It was a position of great honor and responsibility, but Ibn Sina was up to the task. He continued to write and teach, sharing his knowledge with the next generation of scholars and influencing some of the most brilliant minds of his time. Among his students was the famous philosopher Al-Farabi, who credited Ibn Sina with shaping his intellectual development and sparking his interest in philosophy. But as always, there were those who envied and opposed Ibn Sina's work. The conservative ulama, or religious scholars, didn't approve of his methods and accused him of promoting astrology and other occult practices. To escape the growing animosity, he traveled to Cairo, then the intellectual center of the Islamic world, and spent his final years there teaching and writing until his death in 1037. When he passed away, he left behind a legacy that would inspire and influence scholars for centuries to come. Now let's get back to his most famous work, the Canon of Medicine. This book was not just a collection of medical knowledge, it was a revolution. In fact, it was the first modern encyclopedia of medicine, a systematic and comprehensive approach that set the standard for medical practice for centuries. What's more, it was written in a clear and concise style that was accessible to a wide audience, breaking down complex concepts and making them easier to understand. And guess what? It was translated into Latin and became a staple in European medical schools during the Middle Ages. But that's not all. The Canon of Medicine had an impact that went beyond the realm of medicine. Its influence can be seen in the works of some of the greatest thinkers of all time. For example, Roger Bacon, an English philosopher and scientist who was heavily influenced by Ibn Sina's work and incorporated his ideas into his own writings. Likewise, Albertus Magnus, a German Dominican friar and scientist who also studied and admired Ibn Sina's work, particularly his views on cosmology and physics. But perhaps the most famous admirer of Ibn Sina was Leonardo da Vinci, the quintessential Renaissance man. He had a copy of the Canon of Medicine and consulted it frequently, drawing inspiration from Ibn Sina's scientific method and his approach to understanding the natural world. In fact, Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks contain numerous references to Ibn Sina's work, showing the profound impact he had on the great painter and sculptor. Now here's the thing, Ibn Sina's influence didn't end with the Canon of Medicine. He made significant contributions to other areas of knowledge as well, such as philosophy, astronomy, and physics. In fact, he was a true polymath, a Renaissance man who excelled in everything he turned his mind to. Take philosophy, for example. He wrote a book called The Book of Healing, which was a commentary on Aristotle's work, and it became a standard textbook in medical schools for centuries. He also made significant contributions to our understanding of the cosmos, developing new instruments and challenging Ptolemy's theories. And let's not forget his literary talents. He wrote poetry and plays and even invented a new script, but perhaps his most enduring legacy is his medical writings. He was one of the first to advocate for a systematic and scientific approach to medicine, emphasizing the importance of observation, reason, and experimentation. He also made significant advances in the treatment of diseases, developing new therapies and treatments that were ahead of his time. Sadly, his work was often misunderstood and even persecuted by those who saw his ideas as a threat to traditional beliefs. But that didn't stop Ibn Sina from pursuing his passion for knowledge. He continued to write and teach, sharing his wisdom with anyone who was willing to listen. In the end, his contributions to medicine, philosophy, and science would inspire generations of scholars and thinkers, and his legacy would live on long after he was gone. So the next time you think of the greatest minds of all time, be sure to include Ibn Sina, the legendary Persian polymath whose brilliance knew no bounds. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.